Morning, everyone. Welcome to the Next Gen Commute with me, Moose. My pal Tom is around here somewhere, and we're also joined by fellow co-host Joe today. Joe, how has your week been?
Good morning, Moose. That was a real treat for a Friday morning. My week has been pretty busy, to be honest, but I've got that Friday feeling and the sun seems to be out, so I'm very looking forward to the weekend. Coming up, we have our Global Friday Wins with Hiran. Our interview guest is motivational speaker and mental health advocate Nick Elston. And we have fitness focus from Steve Martin. But before all of that, we have James on the news desk from New Model Advisor. Good morning, James. What have you got for us today?
Good morning, all. And for those still keeping track of what day it is, happy Friday. Now, to start the end of the week with some good news, New Model Advisor has got an exclusive this morning that Quilter has extended its once internal mental health and emotional support service, Thrive, to all IFAs. That should be rolled out in the next few weeks. So Thrive essentially was launched by Quilter in 2018, offers a range of resources and tools to help educate and support the mental health and emotional wellbeing of Quilter staff, and now all advisors and support staff across the UK. So that's a great initiative. Hop on the New Model Advisor website. That'll be out this morning, and we should have links. And any questions, please get in touch. Next up is news which dropped late yesterday, that shares in Hargreaves Lansdown have fallen by almost 13%. So a bit of a whack there after one of its founders sold $160 million stake in the business. Now, according to reports, Stephen Lansdown, who founded the business alongside Peter in 1981, reduced his interest by 2.2%. So that is quite big news out this morning. So there should be more on that on the site as the day goes on. Furthermore, the FCA has announced it intends to seek legal clarity on the business interruption insurance to resolve doubt for businesses who are facing uncertainty on claims, especially during the COVID-19 crisis. So it's a bit of a moot point. So look out for that, because they'll be doing a lot of work and some legal challenges to get some clarity for firms. So please keep an eye on that as it comes out today and over the coming weeks. Now, markets, bit of a iffy end to the week for investors. The FTSE 100 extended its losses this morning down about 131 points, so 2 and a bit percent. So it compounds after yesterday's drop. So especially after less than favourable economic reports, to put it mildly. So rattled investors somewhat, so not the best end of the week for markets. Now, what to look out for today, and as it's Friday and the sun's out for once this week, happy days. Please hop on Spotify and SoundCloud to look up the New Model Advisor podcast. A few great stories up there this week. So please do have a look, subscribe, and everyone have a lovely weekend.
Thanks, James. So it's really good to hear that Quilter are extending their mental health support to so much more people, because I think particularly in these times, it's a much needed resource.
Very much so.
Tom, what have we got next?
I'm excited about our second one of these. I think the inaugural one was last Friday, and we are joined by Hiran, who's going to take us through Global Friday Wins. What have you got for us, Hiran?
First up, we're going to do some Friday wins from last week. We had some great stories in. First one would be from Alistair Walker. It's always great when a plan comes together, and especially in a team where it's important everyone is on the same page. So nice work there, Alistair. Next is Will Carter's. We've got a brilliant story from Will, who has managed to secure 500 bags of life from Aldi for his new charity foundation. The recipients of these bags were paying 59p each for them beforehand, so this is going to save them an absolute fortune. Thank you, great story, Will, and we would always urge anyone who has made a contribution to charity to drop their stories into the channel. Thirdly, we have Kat Melbourne. Look at this brilliant painting of a lion. Looks brilliant, Kat. It's very similar to Adam Owen's line from last week, and if anyone would like to seriously set up an art channel in Slack, please let us know. Next one is Ben, our final win from last week, and some very exciting news indeed. After weeks of waiting from the FCA, his firm is finally an appointed representative of postcard planning. Good luck, Ben. I'm sure you'll be awesome. And for all of those who haven't already, do check out his shiny new website, stemfinancial.co.uk. For our global win from one STEM to another, this time science, tech and engineering with math. So this is about astronaut lessons for kids. We love this story. Most of us had dreamed of being an astronaut when younger, even some of us still today. NASA have finally released a training program for children to become a home astronaut. Families can download the Space Station Explorers STEM guide that includes activities for children under 10. This is awesome and another example of humanity adapting and thriving during this tough time. What I'm going to do, guys, is share the story in the chat box. And if anybody wants to read further and download all the various tips and handy sections NASA have sent through, please feel free to do so. Just a final sort of reminder, if I may, for everyone to put their Friday wins in Slack. Now, guys, no matter how small, I'm sure it will put a smile on most of our faces, which will clearly be a big win all round. So before I pass back to Tom, do remember this Sunday is World Laughter Day. So please do laugh a lot. Thanks, Tom.
Oh, thank you, Hiran. Oh, well done for persevering through the technical difficulties. At least it proves this is all live, right? And once again,
Absolutely.
I love the shirt. Chris Budd seems to have stopped wearing his funky shirts, but maybe we can make that just a Friday thing. It's great.
Please do, Chris.
Brilliant. So I'm really quite excited about this next guest. I'm just gonna give him a shout out, actually. When I first moved to Bristol five years ago now, I thrust myself into the local business community just to get to know some people, see what Bristol was all about and had to offer. And this man actually was one of the most friendly faces when I started on that journey, and was very accommodating and very helpful and made me feel really at home. So he doesn't know this, but he made my transition into Bristol life far easier. So Nick, thank you for that.
Wow, thank you.
Yeah, I thought I'd do it publicly. I've never told you face to face, so why not do it in front of many other people? But we have Nick Houston on, who is a mental health advocate and a motivational speaker, amongst other things. So, Nick, you speak internationally on the subject of anxiety and mental health and well-being, and I've had the pleasure of hearing you talk before at the Financial Wellbeing Conference last year, and you're brutally honest about your own experiences. Would you mind sharing how that built up and how you got to that point of sharing that with people?
Sure, of course. Thank you, Tomo. So it started with a breakdown, actually. It started with, I had a history of mental illness in childhood, namely obsessive compulsive disorder. Into teenage and adult life, it kind of morphed into something which is called GAD, generalized anxiety disorder, which actually statistically is more common, but less commonly known. And the one thing I do say as a speaker is I try and say what people don't tend to say about mental health. And one of those things is it takes the same energy to destroy us as it does to actually, as a catalyst to go forward. So running on nervous energy is easily done. And working in, it's no surprise, the industries I work in now in terms of like law, financial services, they're all high pressure environments, which run on that nervous energy. And I think I'd run for so long that I wasn't recovering, as in daily recovery. I think we're all guilty of that. We'll fill up our diaries with our work stuff. We'll fill up our diaries with our home stuff. And then where do we feature on our own lives? We don't. We don't actually put ourselves as a priority. And I think you can only do that for so long before you stop. And the second element is that we end up wearing this mask and we try and be what people want to see in us, and we try and be what situations demand of us, but we sure don't damn show ourselves, because when we show ourselves, we tell ourselves we're going to be shot at, we're going to be dismissed or not loved or judged or whatever that kind of goes through our head. That's the reason I got to my point. And it was outside of a networking meeting where at least I'd just gone in and shook hands. Remember when we could shake hands? And pretended to be happy and strong and confident and everything else. And I sat in the car. When you think about breakdown, you think it's quite an angry thing, but actually it's like a machine shutting down. A lot of people I work with actually have experienced this, but didn't even know what that looked like or what it was. It was at that point, I took a really weird decision that 2 weeks after that breakdown, that I stood up at the same networking meeting and shared what happened. And I shared kind of stuff from my past. It was like a cheap therapy session, really. Really, it was a a terrible talk. I was shaking and crying. Honestly, you want to listen to it now, but it changed my life forever in 3 ways. And the first way was 100% it went the other way, that everybody in the room stood up and queued up to offer their support. The second thing was everybody gave me a hug. I love hugs. I'm a big guy. I love hugs. I'm missing hugs. It's not a come on, but I do love hugs, Tom. The third thing is that, and the thing that did change my life forever was actually it wasn't about me anymore. And I think that, again, something they don't tend to say is anxiety and mental health challenges can be all-consuming. It's a very selfish kind of pursuit, not intentionally by any stretch of the imagination, but it does become that way. And suddenly, by me being brutally honest, as you say, people started opening up with me about everything. People I've known for years and years were saying about grief and abuse and loss. It seemed to me that honesty built that bridge of trust. And so I started to speak more and more. Fast forward, I went fully professional as a speaker in 2017 as a self-employed speaker. Went on to launch my own business, Forging People, last year, but Forging People, the name came from a line in my talk that in life we either let our adversities define us negatively for the rest of our days, or we choose to allow it to forge something better, to forge something powerful, which means that it makes sense of all the stuff we go through before. And I like that. So I call my business that. And yes, and now I work with a lot of lived experience. That's the bracket I fly under, Tomo. So lived experience of mental health. Even the business runs kind of engagement tools. So Quilter, you mentioned, actually are a client of mine. I work a lot with them on a retained basis. And so they have all these, as you say, Thrive and the wellbeing initiatives going on. What they do need to get, like everybody does, is the engagement in that. Not exclusively men, but especially men. Men tend to not engage in classroom wellbeing initiatives and mental health initiatives. So that's kind of my space in the world as I see it now. I increase engagement in the stuff that's already going on. It's nothing special. It's just me telling a story. It's me telling people it's okay to be vulnerable. And actually, when we practice vulnerability as a daily process, we become bulletproof because everything's out there. No one's got anything on us. It's a really kind of liberating thing, I believe. Wow. That's a really long answer. I do apologise for that.
That makes my life far easier, Nick. So please give as long an answer as you want.
Well, no.
This is fascinating. I think what comes to mind is what we're living through now.
Yes.
Feels quite heightened. Have you got any thoughts on that?
I have. So it's weirdly, I found that myself, it's a really weird thing. The people that have had mental health challenges have built mechanisms to cope with things like this. So actually the people that are not coping as well are the people that haven't been through these challenges before, interestingly. So it's kind of like, as somebody with lived experience, I have the tools in place to, so for me, for example, anxiety was regret from the past or fear of the future. Very rarely was it today. And actually that's exactly what we're living in, is Groundhog Day. That's all we have. It's because even the world's greatest minds don't know when the end date's going to be or even what it looks like. So all we have is every single day. And for me, that's kind of my happy place. So I'm quite happy and strong right now. I feel a bit guilty about saying that. I wouldn't wish a pandemic for me to get to that point. But actually, as a natural introvert as well, I think generally, though, we need to have an understanding that everybody is very sensitive right now. People could be making decisions from a position of fear. You may see that in clients and maybe you. So I think there's a lot of kind of time needed and compassion needed right now to truly understand where people are coming from. Because like you guys, I guess, that most people I speak to are either in survival mode or evolution mode. And there's a massive difference between the two. Survival is, can we get through this? And the evolution bit is actually quite exciting. It was brutal for my business. Like all of my stuff was public events, private events, but all in person. Business was wiped out overnight. Fortunately, I got to the point where I was okay and can be okay for a long time. However, what I had to do very quickly was pivot. And actually, when I got into the pivot part, I've been putting stuff online and creating a new reality, but most importantly, a new reality which complements the in-person stuff when we're post-zombie apocalypse. So actually, it still fits together. And again, a lot of people are either giving everything away for free, which I'm definitely doing more of that, but I think that could be quite a bad move long-term, because if everyone's got your stuff for free, what are they going to buy afterwards? And I'm going a whole different path now. But I think we're creating a new reality. So I think we should create a new reality that fits all together right at the end of it.
Wow. Do you know what I just picked up on? And it made me think, pivot. All I can now think of is
Ross from Friends.
Around the,
with a sofa on the, yeah, absolutely. I was going to make that reference, but I wasn't sure. Like, no, your audience is not going to.
I've heard the word used a lot because we're all having to think of different ideas. And
words like furlough, pivot, and it's kind of like the Brexit effect. And so actually, somebody said to me the other day, "Remember the heady days of Brexit," as if it was like something to reminisce over.
Oh, I know. We're all longing to talk about that. That's odd, isn't it? So one would hope we're going to come out the other side of this.
Mm-hmm.
And useful ideas there. You know, what I picked up was talking to others and just listening and just trying to understand where they're coming from.
Yeah.
But we are going to come out the other side of this. I'll stay the eternal optimist. You've been running those workshops. What do they look like, and how would you be able to help people when we're actually able to?
Okay, so I guess my flagship workshop is basically I run speaking academies. So before all of this, it was in-person speaking academies, but actually I'm running them online now. And there's two elements to this. The first element is it's all based around emotional storytelling. I think, again, focusing on the fact that vulnerability can be our superpower, I provide people a safe environment to start to deliver emotion. I always give people the caveat of saying, like, you can make stuff up, because it's quite a heavy thing sometimes for people to share stuff for the first time. And we had an event this week, but everybody chooses to be honest and truthful and open. I actually had somebody come out this week on one of my speaking academy sessions. They felt safe enough to take that step. And it was an amazing, I mean, and this lady was in her 50s. So it's an amazing kind of platform when you're in a community of people that are being vulnerable, that you feel safe and non-judged and everything else. But I think there's a lot of power in emotional storytelling. People come to me because sometimes they're not being heard at home. Sometimes it's a therapeutic process. Sometimes if you're in networking or sales or client facing, it could be the one way that makes us unique in business is if we wrap our personal stories around our solution, around our product, around our service. I had a networking meeting thing I was speaking at last week, and there was like 5 IFAs in the room. At the 5 IFAs, one of them decided to share something personally. Guess which one I remembered? He still managed to say what he did, but I remembered the person that gave the most. We give more of ourselves, we get more back. So I empower people to do that through the Speaking Academy sessions. And the second thing is I help people to commercialize their business as well. Because when most people go from having a business into speaking. I went from being employed, leaving as a matter of principle, and then having no job. And the mortgage doesn't get paid on dreams and missions. So I had to get very good very quickly at commercializing speaking. So I help people build brands around speaking as well.
No, yeah, I would definitely recommend people check that out for sure. And we'll get some contact details from you afterwards, Nick.
Cool.
Is there any resources in particular right now that we can reach out to for our clients or for people that we're seeing going through this, or ourselves?
Okay, so I'm a mental health champion for Time to Change, also an ambassador for Mental Health UK and lots of different organisations. So there's lots of different resources out there. I think that in terms of solutions, I could definitely recommend trusted solution providers and organisations such as Mind, Mental Health UK, Time to Change, lots of different organisations like that. But interestingly, I think at the minute, solutions are easier to access because you know the roots of solutions. I think what we sometimes need is just a little bit of inspiration. We need a little bit of kind of an example, and I think that's the bracket that lived experience comes into. You look on social media, Twitter's a great example that it becomes a mosh pit of despair that people feel open enough to share, but without any solution or inspiration. And I think that that's where we need to catch people, is to show people that there's something better. There's something more you can do with this, and actually turn your adversity as a catalyst to do whatever you want to do. And trust me, if I can do it, anybody can do it. Honestly.
Good man. Finally, I've overrun a bit because I knew I would, because I'm always fascinated with what you've got to say. We always ask our guests, final question, what are you looking forward to most when lockdown is over?
Country music. And what I mean by that is that every year I go to London to the O2 for the Country to Country Festival to get all the bigger US acts over. And I turned up in London. This is the weekend before the lockdown, and they cancelled it the night before the event. So I'm absolutely gutted, and I can't wait till next year now. So O2 Arena next year. See you all there. Get your cowboy hats on. You'll be fine. Bit of country music. Happy days. Again, country storytelling. Big theme going on there.
Brilliant. And where can we find you? Where's the best place to contact you?
He's just nickelston.com. Nice and simple. You can find my social links and everything through their YouTube channel and stuff.
Brilliant. Nick, thank you so much. And if you want a nice, warm, fuzzy feeling, go check out the comments page because people have really engaged with that conversation.
Oh, cool. Okay, I will. Thank you. Wow, thanks very much.
No, thank you so much. I really appreciate you sharing that. And on to the next segment. So, Joe, what have you got for us?
Yeah, I'd second that. Fabulous interview, really moving, powerful stuff. And I think everyone would have got a huge amount from that. So thanks both, but particularly Nick.
Thank you, Joe.
Only Nick.
Only Nick, really.
Only Nick.
I mean, you did a good job, Tommy.
Thank you.
So from mental well-being, we go on to our physical well-being. Next, we have our fitness focus with Steve Martin. Steve, last week you introduced us to intermittent fasting, which actually gave a go last week. What have you got for us today?
Well, tell me how it was, first of all.
Yeah, it was really good, actually. So I've been fasting between midday and 8 p.m. And I find actually the first couple of hours of the day are quite tricky. And like all I think about is food. But after that, you know, even when 12 o'clock comes round, I'm not starving. So I was really surprised at that.
Awesome. Well, you're obviously having a much better experience than Jessica, who's been trying 60 and 8 and is absolutely starving. So I guess just my one thing with the intermittent fasting is, at least when you're starting off, make sure you're eating all the food. It's not a reason to eat less food. It's the reason to eat the right amount of food just in a shorter window. So maybe, Jessica, you're trying to cut your food and cut your window of eating at the same time. So maybe give that a try. Okay, cool. And I know Adam Owen's been trying it as well because he had to cut off a call we had earlier in the week because he needed to eat before his end of day fasting point. So he's like, I need to go. You made me do this, so I'm cutting. I'm cutting you off. So I'm glad to hear that I don't just talk to myself for these things. So today I am just a quick run round. First time was eat less of this stuff, eat more of this stuff. We then talked a little bit about how do we work out what we really should eat, and then I gave you some examples of how that might work out and how we could sort of organise a sort of default food diary to make life easy. And that's going to be one of the themes that we'll come on to today. How do we make this easier for ourselves? Intermittent fasting, obviously you guys have been trying that and that's great. When I do it, I find the first couple of hours difficult. If I drink a load of coffee, it kind of goes away. Then I start shaking. So there's a bit of a balance to be had between the devil that you choose. So what I wanted to talk about today actually is a little bit head based more than body based to start off with. How we eat and why we eat, and how we exercise and why we exercise, and how we sleep and why we sleep. An awful lot of that obviously comes from the head rather than from the body. So one of the things I've been trying, I think I said to you guys this before, I've been trying to do some meditation, which for someone whose preference is just to run head first like an idiot at a wall in whichever direction I'm going, I'm glad I've got your picture, Nick, because you're nodding at me like the idiot that I feel when I say that. So this was my attempt to try and get a bit more mindful, obviously, about what I do, and Headspace was the first place I went to. And then I found that actually Headspace has accompanying head stuff to go alongside all the physical things that we've been talking about. So the one I've been trying to follow is the mindful eating, because I probably train as much as I do and have done for as long as I have because I'm greedy. I am greedy. I like to eat rubbish and I like to do lots of it. So my balance was, well, if I train enough, I can eat all of that stuff and that would sort of minimize the outcome. As I get slightly older, I'm starting to think, well, maybe if I could have better control over how I approach eating in the first place, then I might be able to live a more normal life and not have to train every single day. So today's thought around this really is, well, why don't we consider, we built all our building blocks around what we should eat, how we should train and whatever else. Why don't we start to think about how we think about these things? So Headspace not only does us mindful eating, they have some other sections. So they have a sleep and wake up one where they have meditation to help you with sleep, some morning meditation, how to fall back to sleep, some sleep hygiene, how to sleep better, and some power napping stuff. For stress and anxiety, which obviously following on from Nick's conversation, and I'm sure this is at a very basic level, but meditation for stress, meditation for anxiety, how to relax, breathing exercises to reduce stress, calming meditation, and relaxation meditation. And then for movement and healthy living, they actually have some headspace stuff and some mindfulness around running, walking, sport in general, eating, cooking, meditation, and weight loss. So my suggestion today is, rather than focusing so much on what we're doing, let's focus on how we're thinking about it and see if we can incorporate some headspace, or I'm sure there are other platforms, I just don't know anything about them, but the equivalent thing into your daily routine. With the hope being it becomes less of a battle over time and it becomes something that's more natural and straightforward. So I've got 3 eating suggestions. I'm not going to cook them for you like Rohan, but they really are idiot proof on the basis that I can make them. So these are 3 easy, healthy, vegetable-based things as a meat lover, but vegetable-based stuff you can make tons of, you can freeze it, you can keep it in your fridge, you can eat it all week. And it becomes a preferable thing to go and grab rather than having to grab at a chocolate bar or a curly whirly, which is my treat of choice at the moment. And it tickles my family because the Scots say curly whirly in quite a different way, a bit like murder. It's just a distinct way that we say these words compared to the rest of you more polished performers. Anyway, leek and potato soup. It is 2 leeks, enough butter to sweat the leeks in for a little while, chuck some potatoes in, and add some chicken or vegetable stock, cook it for half an hour and blend it. It literally cannot be easier. Lentil soup. This is the one my mother taught me when my late, unfortunately, mother taught me, I think probably the first one of all. 1 mug of lentils, 2 onions, 3 carrots. I mean, literally, it's as easy as 1, 2, 3. Oh, anyway. And again, put some stock in it, chicken or vegetable or pork or whichever stock that you want to. You can make that. That's difficult. You can buy it in a 1 litre carton. That's easy. So I would suggest you do that. Also, when we're in pursuit of eating less of the potatoes, rice, pasta, and all that kind of empty carb stuff, this is my favourite food accompaniment, which is a kind of lentil-based thing. And again, there's a theme here. 3 or 4 ingredients is all I'm ever prepared to be bothered with. So a mug of lentils, 1 onion, and either a tin of chopped tomatoes or some arrabbiata sauce. The arrabbiata sauce probably got a bit more sugar in it, but it's tastier. So you pick your enemies. With all of these things, you can put some cream on it if you like cream. My favourite version of the leek and potato soup is to chop some cooked bacon on top of it. So you can posh these things up a little bit if you wish. But the principle is we can make tons of it, we can package it, we can freeze it, and then it becomes a go-to, something that we can get very easily. Okay, just a little thought on our wake up and be awesome. Why would watch sport be and wake up and be awesome? So I've had an interesting experience this week. So as you know, I have to sit on my bike every morning because that's what I started doing for you guys. And it's starting to drive me around the bend. And Adam Owen says I'm not allowed to participate unless I'm sat on the bike. But actually what happened, I started riding longer and longer on my weekend ride. Because I'm like that, whatever it is, it has to be more and more and more. And I thought, well, if I do that, that means I can do less bike riding during the week. It seems sensible. I could still ride for 7 hours in a week, but if I do 4 of them on a Saturday, I don't need to do an hour every day. Simple maths. Strange thing happened. I started sleeping really badly. I'd gone from sleeping brilliantly to sleeping really, really badly. And it wasn't that I was doing nothing. I was just doing different sport, but I wasn't doing cardio. I wasn't doing something to raise my heart rate for an extended period of time. And I thought, is that just a coincidence, or is there actually something in that? So I then decided to restart doing the cardio in the morning, and suddenly I've started sleeping better again. So something just to think about, the sport or the physical activities that you do might have a direct impact on how well you sleep. And next week I'm going to tell you about a thing called Whoop, which is this new band thing that I wear that gives me more data, and it confirmed not only did I think I was sleeping badly, it's telling me I was sleeping really, really badly, haven't been sleeping really well. So just give some thought to the physical activity you're taking, and there may well be a correlation with how well you sleep. It might not be the same correlation as mine, but just have a think about it. One just little thing that I quite enjoy. So these are my crazy children. Of course, in my house, you've got no choice. You're not allowed to sit and spend all day playing computer games, although they spend a excessive amount of time playing computer games. But my current favourite workout is to do some pull-ups The little one is about to fling himself up against the wall to do some handstand push-ups, and the crazy one at the end is me trying to do push-ups with my eldest son lying on my back. As a total body workout, we can do these things. They're quick, they're easy. Doing things like pull-ups is amazing for your posture. We spend a lot of time curved forward, and we don't spend a lot of time working on our back. So if we do things like pull-ups, it very much helps from a postural point of view. Particularly, I've shown you, Charlie, with the bands. When I do sets of pull-ups that are more than 6, I have to have bands to help me because I can't do it. There's no shame in that. You can get bands that would resist your entire body weight, and you can reduce them down as you become stronger, or if you lengthen the rest period within them. So I've given you loads of athletic things to do before, but that's just one to think about. You'll be able to buy a pull-up bar to hang up in your house for about £100, or you can buy that frame thing. I bought it for €130, so it's not expensive pieces of kit. And there are hours of fun or torture, depending on your disposition, to be achieved by using those things. As ever, let's try and go to bed and get up at the same time. The routine helps us. We're back to that sign again. And that's our summary for the week. So get up, go to bed at the same time, soups and lentils for nutrition, pull-ups, handstand push-ups, press-ups, and just think about if there's a correlation between the exercise that you do and how well you're sleeping, and just become a bit more mindful of that, because you might actually manage to spot some patterns like I did. That's it. Turbo speed.
Amazing.
Oh, Gary Hill loves pull-ups. Rich Ellis can't do any pull-ups. There we go. Well, to start with, I couldn't do pull-ups either. I couldn't do dips. I couldn't do any of those things. Bands are the magic thing that's the difference between not being able to do it and in the future being able to do it. You can follow the perfect form. You can learn the movement, and the bands then. It also allows you a progression. If you're all kind of numbers and progress based, if you start with a massive band one week, and then slowly the band that you need to support you gets less each week as you go along, you can see that you've got some, that you're making progress with that. And ultimately, these things are quite Matt Aitchison. Poor Matt's been the recipient of my sporting advice for longer than all of you, and still can't do any pull-ups. But most of the things that we talked about before was running related rather than that. So yeah, soups are easy, recipes are in there. Obviously it'll be in the catch-up thing. Adam always has the slides if you want them anyway, but if you can't remember those soups, then really you could do a little bit of practice on that. And Matt, yes, if you only do one at a time, you need a band, because with the best will in the world, mate, if you can only actually do one, you're not really creating an awful lot of damage to the muscles to allow them to repair and grow. So if you just literally go to Amazon or some other store and search for pull-up bands, you'll get a pack of them from something that looks like it's an elastic band and not going to do anything at all, to the other extent that would probably manage to lift the world's strongest man, and you can therefore get whichever one's useful to you in between. But yeah, good work, Gary Hill. Tremendous. Round of applause. Thanks, guys. Overrun as ever, but that's how it goes.
Great stuff. Thanks, Steve. Loads of practical advice there. And for me also, bands are the saving grace. So, you know, it definitely makes you feel better because you can just do a little bit more than you otherwise would.
Yeah, and it makes for progress. That's the thing, doesn't it? If you don't have the band, you just can't do enough of it to get going at all. And really with those kind of exercises, the proxies, there are proxies for them, but they're nowhere near actually being a proper proxy. So get a band in and crack on, and let me know. Send me videos or pictures through Twitter of you doing pull-ups or press-upping with your children or whatever. Probably not if your children are 25. I mean, there's not much of that in next gen, but they're probably going to be a bit heavy. So thank you, guys. I hope that was useful. Thank you for all your nice comments. It seems that we at least all have an opinion on a pull-up. It's not all favourable, but still.
Thanks, Steve. And that just about wraps things up for today. Tomo, what have we got on the show next week?
Packed week next week. We have a focus. We got our tech feature. We're going to have a focus on coaching, a whole show dedicated to paraplanning, which I think is going to be fascinating. Titas Tomo's back. I'll try and think of some decent tips for you. And also, because it's Bank Holiday Friday coming up, we're going to have a bumper crafting feature with Gretchen Betts. So I'm very excited about that. She's if she can get anywhere near her Easter bar, then this is going to be quite the show. So yeah, that's it from us today. Stay safe. mind, body, and soul was covered today. So take the tips, enjoy your weekends, and yeah, see you on the other side. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, Joe.
Bye.